Hello, welcome. So the first topic was mine. This was mostly a heads up for the Bloomberg folks that we're working on OLH stuff. In our downstream testing, we've discovered some leaked index entries around OLH and instances after all of the versions of an object are deleted. Some race in the cleanup code is preventing that from happening. So I linked a couple of tracker issues where we're trying to track that down. The first focus is just a multi-site test case to reproduce it. It did seem to be specific to multi-site.
So it is the regression says no, so it is also in like squid and reef as well, like earlier.
It is in Tentacle. So Tentacle doesn't have the timestamp based changes, so it's not a regression from that at least. I think downstream we reproduced it on a squid base as well. Luckily, some previous bug fixing there did add some useful bucket check commands, bucket check OLH and bucket check unlinked. And those can discover and repair cases like this, but we need to figure out the bug and fix that now.
I remember I ran into some issues like after the deletion. There's some still has a pending OLH log that prevent OLH head object from being deleted. I'm not sure if it's the same thing. It's what you observed. Do you, like?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, okay.
So so it's tricky because of racing deletes or racing replays of the log, but the last client to replay the log should be cleaning it up. But in our testing, we're seeing that cleanup fail with e-canceled, which implies that it's racing with something else, but that something else is not cleaning it up.
Okay, so just to clarify, are you going to be adding a test case to reproduce this, or at least try to reproduce this?
Yes, on the agenda, I did link a tracker issue and pull request where I've started working on a test. The
second one, I see.
Yeah, but right now the test is misbehaving somewhere else. Like it's trying to delete all of the versions and they're not all gone when it goes to check. So I'll keep working on that.
Okay. I'll keep an eye on it.
Jane, do you know if there are other tracker issues related to the pending OLH that we could link to this?
I don't think so. I found this while we are working on the issue that on the secondary side we failed to promote the version to the current. That's where I observed. I didn't check the other existing issues on that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, let's move on. Jacques, I see you added a topic. Welcome to the call. You want to introduce this?
Hi, yeah. I am interested in improving the help generation, the sort of first and foremost for the CLI, although possibly for other things later. And I created a tracker sort of outlining at least a high level what I'm interested in working on. I am mentioning this here mostly because I did a quick search and didn't find anything, but if anyone else is working on something like similar or related, I would be interested to hear about that. But also, if anyone else like has thoughts on how they think it should or shouldn't work, I would love to hear from them, like on the ticket. Sort of at a high level, I have of like what it is I'm interested in doing. We have been bitten several times by the help not necessarily agreeing with the code, and I think it would be neat if we could have the help be generated by the code so that we don't have to keep it up to date all the time. Yeah, and this is not an RGW specific problem, but we'll start somewhere. So I figured I would like to do this for RGW admin, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, just wanted to comment that just recently I had someone, I saw that we have missing some Redis to admin bucket logging commands. And then I figured out that in order to fix those missing commands, I have to fix like 3 or 4 files, put pretty much the same piece of information in all kind of places. Like there is in the man page, and of course there's the help for the Redis Gateway admin. There's also an admin documentation, which is separate from the man page, and of course there's the documentation of the picture itself. So it's like you have to touch all kind of places, and you most likely will get it wrong because it's all manual fixes.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is sort of precisely the sort of thing that I'm looking to alleviate, basically by having all this information in the code, and then we can set it up to generate, like, because conceivably we could have it just generate the source that we need for the man page or the website or whatever. Like, whether that actually works, I guess remains to be seen. But in an ideal world, I would like to get it to have all this information specified once in one place and then generated for whatever else we need it for.
So, Jacques, one thing I've looked at doing, and it's unfortunately, it's still kind of on my radar, but it's a larger project than it looks like at first, is redoing the way command line dispatching is done in Rados GW admin, for example. And there are some libraries that will generate at least usage stubs from the syntax that you give them, and there may be possibilities also for generating more documentation of that. I think you've all done a good job highlighting that, you know, man pages and other places need to be kept in sync too. But the way that commands are actually dispatched is kind of the final arbiter of it. So at least having that straight would help a lot.
Just to clarify, do you mean sort of how we translate from
how you parse command line arguments and actually dispatch those commands? That can be unified more closely with documentation in the code.
But won't you need to change the way that we do args and everything into using some kind of an arg library that does all that for you?
I don't know if it'll do I haven't seen one that would do everything like that you mentioned, for instance, but yes.
Oh no, I'm talking just about doing the updates to the man page and to the docs and everything. It's more like an RST markdown kind of exercise. If you want to kind of derive the usage from the code, I think you'll have to use, I mean, there are libraries that does that for C++, like more structured way to do args to command line tools, like not the way that we do that. And then those libraries, they can also spit out the documentation based on how you define which arguments you have, which are mandatory, which are optional, and so on.
So
Correct.
I remember
Go ahead, Casey.
I remember a long time ago there was I don't know if it was a GSOC project or what, but somebody was looking at redoing RGW admin with the Boost program options library, which gives you the kind of structured help output in the code. And I think that was a really good idea. But RGW admin is huge and messy, and so it is a big project. Jesse, I know that you did some refactoring there recently too.
Yeah, I at least got it started, but definitely that would be, and there's, it can also be done partially, sort of. We can talk about it offline when we don't have, you know, so many people who might not be interested. We could. I'm just saying that it could be a place to start, because it would also be unfortunate to document things, change them, and then have to document them again.
I did have one question about that. I've thought about using Boost program options to replace Ceph args before. How constrained are we by like absolute compatibility with old versions of Rados GW admin? Like, are we allowed to break people's scripts every now and then?
I mean, I think there would be a preference not to, but if there's a really compelling reason, then
All
maybe.
right.
I mean,
All right. So long as we aren't doing it egregiously, we just don't have to maintain bug for bug compatibility, basically.
well, I guess define bug compatibility. I assume you're talking about changing syntax for things, but I would also assume that there are ways to use program options to preserve the existing syntax.
I was just wondering if there were any edge cases, if we ran into any edge cases where we needed to change syntax, if that would be a showstopper, basically.
Okay, yeah, potentially not. I mean,
all right,
as long as we document it in release notes, I think it's probably okay.
I think we usually want to have like a more kind of deprecation process where you note that something is deprecated, but you still support it for another version or two, and only after that you actually remove it. So it might make the things a bit messy for a while.
Well, this is definitely interesting, and Jacques, the fact that it's causing real world problems is actually good to know, and I'll definitely read through your PR.
Sure. Yeah, I haven't put over a PR yet. I just made a tracker, just sort of as a statement of intent.
Yep.
My plan is to kind of like you suggested in chat, just sort of construct like a minimal version of like, well, here's kind of what we could do if we did like some of it to start the discussion of like the direction that we think would be good to go. And yeah, then there'll be good discussion there.
Yeah, I'll put more ideas into this PR. I mean, at least at the initial phase. I'm also, I mean, we are standing in front of GSOC season. So if you think that maybe some of the tasks there could be split off to a student, then we might propose that as a project idea.
Sure. I had one other question, which is how loath are we to introduce additional dependencies? The reason I ask is that I know we have Boost program options, and I know that some of the other Ceph CLI tools use them. I don't know if it is powerful enough to cover what Rados GW admin needs, at least without a bunch of stuff written around it, which may be worthwhile, but like it may also turn out to be simpler to use a possibly more powerful existing library for this. But if people are opposed to introducing additional dependencies unless they're really needed, then maybe that's unlikely.
I think overall the approach is if you can do that using Boost, then this is fine. I mean, this is acceptable. If not, then you kind of have to convince the team that it's not like some library that somebody wrote a couple of years ago and never touched, and nobody's going to fix bugs and so on and so forth. So this is the main pushback against libraries. Also, it's always better to use a header-only implementation if possible, just to save on more linking issues.
Yeah, Boost program options is a little long in the tooth and a little clumsy in places, but it actually is really, really powerful. So I'd be surprised if you ran into too many situations you couldn't handle with it. There are newer libraries that are a lot nicer to use, like Lyra, and there's another one I really like that I'm struggling to remember the name of, but last time I looked, they actually weren't able to handle as many situations as program options can ultimately. But yeah, I think Yuval's answer was great with respect to do we add dependencies or not. You can try things with CPM pretty easily now, but there is the linking issue, and as you mentioned, if it's already in Boost, it may be just the path of least resistance. But was there a situation you were thinking you couldn't handle with it?
I think it's not that I don't think Boost program options can do it. It's that it doesn't. Like in my head, I think in particular the concern is that my experience with program options, which admittedly is not extensive, suggests that it doesn't really have a great way of handling like commands as opposed to parameters. And so you can construct it by sort of like effectively doing that bit yourself and then just having the args passed to program options afterwards. But it may be that I just haven't looked into it enough. That's an option. I just wanted to get a feeling.
I think your impression is kind of correct. I mean, you're talking about like get style, where you have like subcommands and subhelp, and it will do that, but you do indeed have to control it, and it is kind of an artificial. There might be something nicer. I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying it is a more capable library than it appears at first when you dig down into it a little. But yeah, that is a style that you may have to do more manual steps than you'd like. Casey.
Yeah, I guess on the question of whether we want to pull in other dependencies, I don't really have a problem with that, but I don't really want RGW to be doing parsing completely different than the rest of Ceph. Like Rados GW admin using the existing Ceph argparse stuff supports a lot of Ceph's generic command options. And so even if we do switch to program options in RGW, we would need to support those still using probably argparse. Adams, it sounds like you are considering rewriting Ceph argparse with program options, which would make that better. But yeah, that's just a consideration. I think we want to. It would be nice if what we propose here could work in general for all of Ceph argparse. But I think that also expands the scope of the project, unfortunately.
Also make it less likely to be eventually accepted, because it's going to not be under our control.
So I mean, if we did start with just Rados GW admin, then we could hook in whatever manual parsing for the Ceph argparse stuff. I don't think that would give us the help info, but we could hack that in too.
yeah, I mean, as I say, this problem, like we've had problems with this not specifically or not only with Redis GW admin. So I think this problem is broader. But as you've all mentioned, like we have to, it's difficult to do this for everywhere at once. And I think I would imagine that if Redis GW admin can demonstrate that it has nice things, it might be easier sell to expand that to the other tools.
Yeah, especially if we find a way to integrate with existing argparse stuff, that would make it easier for individual commands to opt in one at a time instead of rewriting everything. Yuval's point, I think, is, I don't know if it's a political one or just an organizational one about decision making. Like this call, we can make decisions about the RGW component. But for broader discussions about Ceph-wide CLI stuff, the Ceph Developer Monthly call is probably a better place to bring that up. I see that there is one next Wednesday. So if you're interested in discussing with the broader team, that would be a good place for it.
One thing I wanted to add with respect to Redis GW admin CLI tool is one thing that I already ran into a couple of times is that sometimes the arguments that you provide to specific command, they are just ignored. Like for example, GC process, when you provide the shard ID, it seems like it takes it, but it doesn't actually use it. Would be nice to know. I don't know if this would be in scope, or maybe I think it's related to the discussion to at least know that, that argument is not being used, while you might be under impression that it is.
Yeah, that's a good point. Our parsing is kind of global in that we just have one if else
Yeah.
chain that parses everything, but libraries
Maybe
like
that can
program
be improved.
options do support hierarchical stuff with subcommands, and so you can attach specific options to only the subcommands that take them. I think that would help.
Yep.
Yeah, and actually program options will do that. It's not as pretty though.
And that
So
would be great.
yeah, I do think program options is a good option for this stuff, but I think it still leaves a gap in man pages.
Yeah, and that to what Yuval was saying earlier, that's when we started this kind of thread. I that's the big question, right? Is if we change all the other documentation so that it's accurate, and then we change the command line handling somehow, now we'll have to update the documentation twice, if that makes sense. It's a problem.
I wonder if there's some way that we could define all of the commands and options with program options, but have a separate executable that uses that to generate docs or generate man pages. That might be possible.
Yeah, go ahead, Chuck.
So I was just saying that is one of the explicit goals that I would like to achieve. Does it need to be a separate executable even?
Well, I assume it would have to be part of the build process to compile the options and run some script or executable to output the man page.
Oh, I see. Sure. Yeah. For I guess, like build logistical notions. I was just like, you know, you could, if you have all this data in Rados GW admin, you could totally just have like, you know, Rados GW admin print me all the docs kind of thing. Whether we would actually want that or not, but yes, having as many docs as possible automatically or generated as automatically as possible from a single source of here are all the commands and the args they take is exactly what I'm trying to push towards.
Yeah, so I guess it would be interesting to explore whether program options could do that. One thing that we've done for Ceph options, like config options, is that we now have just YAML files with descriptions of all of them, and Python scripts that will generate docs, and the source code to consume them. So if we can't get program options to do this for us, then maybe we need some YAML-like format to describe them, and then scripts to generate man pages, and also generate source code that has the program options for parsing. That would be a little more involved, a little more meta.
Yeah, I want to say that the existing mechanism were in your the thing that could be really automatically generated, like the admin guide and the man pages, and there are also things that cannot be automatically generated, like regular documentation pages. But for example, with the options now, I don't need to copy paste the description into the actual documentation, just referencing it with an RST command, and it just appears there the same way that it is described in the YAML and in the code and everywhere. So I guess doing something similar for the admin commands whenever I want to reference them in just some piece of documentation, that would be also super helpful.
Interesting. So I mean, docs.ceph.com currently for Rados GW admin is just, actually, is that just an extra RST file separate from the man?
Yes.
Oh wow,
Yes.
I didn't
Yes.
realize that.
Yeah, this is why I said I just just now I found out that I'm missing all the new bucket logging commands, and I figured out that I have to go and change it in 3 different places manually. So there's the man page, the admin guide, and the actual documentation. And they all have to match whatever is actually in the Redis Gateway admin code.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, so I guess my first question is whether if we set up the commands and options with boost program options, if we would be able to write scripts based on those descriptions that could generate man pages and docs. If not, then we would have to find another approach.
Yeah, I'm not sure. As I say, I need to spend some more time actually trying to bend program options to my will to do exactly this, but it seems like there is more interest than I was expecting even. So I will give that a shot and see what we find.
Okay, well, you created a tracker with some good details. Would you mind adding an update, trying to capture the discussion here and possible ways forward?
Yeah, no problem. Will do.
And that anybody else with opinions can add comments to the tracker as well. Yuval, your suggestion about getting GSOC involvement is a good one. I think we would want to try to break down or complete a design before we try to break out tasks from that, but definitely I think worth doing.
Yeah, I'll add that to the project. And like I'll put some kind of more abstract description, and once we get into the weeds, we'll be able to spell out the exact task that the student can do.
All right, other thoughts here? Well, thanks a lot, Jacques. This was really helpful. Any final topics for the agenda?
Yeah, so my team's looking at GCM. We've got like a hard requirement to implement GCM and Ceph by the end of the year. And I know Kyle was looking into this, and he's spun off a separate Slack channel room in regards to it. The one concern I think I have is that with GCM, there's going to be a 16 byte overhead for every 4K 4K chunk. Is that going to pose a problem, and how should we kind of handle that? Because I looked at how MinIO does it and AWS makes it kind of transparent. They use an attribute with the actual size of the object, and then that attribute is used for listing and get and head request. Whereas MinIO doesn't use that, and when you do like a list or a list, it shows you the on-disk usage of with encryption, so it includes that overhead. So it's two different implementations. I was kind of leaning towards the style that AWS is using with an attribute on the object, but I kind of wanted to gauge the broader team here in regards to that.
Well, separate from encryption, we also have the server-side compression support, which we expect to change the on-disk size, and
Okay.
for that we report the logical size rather than the compressed size in all of the APIs. And so I would assume that other cases like that should do the same. Like if you upload an object that is 2 gigabytes, then the API should say that it's 2 gigabytes, even if there's overhead in storing it.
Okay. All right. We'll go down that route then. We were going to look at adding an attribute to the object, which is similar to what AWS does to track the unencrypted size for internal use. So we'll probably go down that path then.
Okay, so I mean, RGW has its own X adders, which are like internal. Are you thinking the same, or would it be like user-defined metadata that's actually exposed by S3?
No, it would be
Just internal.
Yeah, just internal.
Sounds good. Yeah, there are a lot of examples of that already. Compression and encryption.
Okay. Yeah. So that was the big thing, and I do recall Matt also mentioned trying to support deduplication, but that would be interesting to see how we do that with encryption. I'm kind of waiting to see
Yeah.
more in regards to that on how that would work. Because I'm not 100% sure that that will work with just this, that will work with this GCM implementation, but we can certainly try.
So currently, our implementation of dedupe doesn't dedupe anything that is encrypted.
Yes, it skips it. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, I still think there are a lot of open questions there that would need answers before we try to support it. It sounds like Matt was talking about block-based dedupe, which isn't what we have now. And so maybe we just need to come up with a design for that and figure out how encryption plays into it.
Yeah, I think that's going to have to be the route we take. At least on my end, we are looking at implementing GCM by the end of the year. I know Kyle had an interest in looking at this upstream as well, to try to get it into the umbrella or later release. But, you know, my security team's pushing back that, you know, we really need GCM. So we're going to try to implement something that gets upstream support.
Okay. I see there's already been some good discussion on the upstream Slack about this stuff. I will, I linked the GCM Slack channel that was created specifically for this if other folks are interested in joining and following along.
Thank you, Cody. Casey?
All right. Anything else for the call? All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next time. Actually, it looks like next week conflicts with the Ceph Developer Monthly, so we'll cancel in favor of that. But I hope you go to that instead. Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.